already, so we'll go ahead and get started. And basically, just starting off, I kind of just want to go more in depth into a look into like your career as well as into my career. Kind of get to know you more. Maybe some people aren't familiar with who you are, with who I am, or just general stuff like that. Also, I kind
Yeah.
of just want to know. Also, why don't you start like that? Kind of start off. Talk to me about like who you are, what you do now, and I guess like how you kind of get
Yeah.
started getting into it.
Yeah. So, I got Rainbow Six, the game itself, back in 2015, I think, like when it actually first came out.
Mm,
Got it for Christmas that year. And then I played on Xbox for a while, just kind of playing for fun. It was just another game that I kind of played a bit and then ended up, getting really good at ranked. So I started getting to like game battles and stuff,
yeah.
MLG. Back in the day, it's all the rage. And then it was Go Force and MLG pretty much. That was it. Because like I
Yep.
was too young to do Pro League, obviously. I
Right.
was 15 at that time. I wasn't even good enough to do Pro League, keeping it frank on Xbox. Like, so did that for a while. Um, it's like a fun fact is that's actually like where me and Forrest kind of started our career together. It was in, like I think like late 2016.
Really, all the way back then, I didn't even know that.
Yeah, yeah. So we like played game battles and stuff together on Xbox, and then you know after that kind of progressed into like I said do Go Fours things like that, and then they had like the Major League. Remember
Hmm.
that? It's like that's when Pro League left Xbox to go to PC. It kind of came into like this little like 5K tournament. It was like the CL, I guess, of Xbox or whatever it was. But it was like a major league thing, and I was like, did that for a couple seasons, and then finally, like, got enough to get a PC, and then got a PC, switched over. Once again, just played ranked, and then eventually, started going T3, doing all that. Then we made a team where it was me and Forrest. We're like, okay, I only got a PC. We're like, okay, let's make a team. Let's go for CL. And so, hold
Yo,
on.
someone turned that light off on you out there, bro.
Yeah, yeah. Give me a second. Hold on.
Yo, that's actually hilarious, man.
Scumbags around the South. I'll tell you what. There's some scumbags around here. All right.
That's actually
They didn't.
hilarious. No.
I'll tell you what. I'm looking right through the window right now.
Oh,
They're walking
that's
away. All right. Well, anyways, where was that? What were we talking about? We were talking about
just
the
just talking about your career and about how you started your transition into how you got you
yeah.
got
So,
a
anyways, so
PC.
yeah, so we got PC. Force Count was one. We're like, okay, let's make a team. Let's get after it, right? Because like I played on T3 teams and shit, but we weren't any good. So then we started playing Go Fours, and we played against Grixer in a Go Four. All right, and like he played Doc. That was his thing back then. He went half wall as Doc on border, like the old border.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
And dude, he just wore us out. Like he was just handling us on that balcony. So we damn were like, okay, hey, listen, we're making a team. Come play with us. It's like, okay, you can't play with us. That was like me, Grixer, and Force. We started that team. That was like the inception of Obey at the beginning, right? Came out after that. We got Fozo on Kilo, I think, was like the original team, if
Hmm.
I remember correctly. I don't or was it like if Fozo came before Kilo. But anyways, got that. Eventually, um, us and Kilo went several ways. And then we got Abnai, and that was Obey. And then qualified for CL. That same season we won CL, and then made Pro League, and then obviously uh, that whole deal that was a big fiasco right there.
Hmm.
A lot of young guys, a lot of money being waved in our face. We didn't really know what we were doing at the time.
Yeah,
Kind of gave away a good team, to become a mediocre team. Is
yeah,
essentially what happened. Uh, so we got dropped Fozo and Abenai because we got the Rogue offer, which would have been easily invert, and we'd have played for Rogue. So we tried out with them for like a week, and they were really good. Like easily invert were really good players. They had a really good coaching staff. I think it was Redeemer and Reaper at the time, but like those guys were good, and
yeah.
like we would have probably stuck with them, but like the negotiations with the org were just like not very friendly, if that makes sense. Like
Right.
I'm not gonna get too into it because I don't want to like
Yeah, it's all good.
you know do that, but it's like there were some things that we were asking for they weren't willing to budge on, and just basically it's like you know we got an org like United who's like willing to pretty much give us whatever we need.
Right.
You got an org like Rogue who's like just imposing their will on us. It's like we're just not going to go with
Right.
Rogue at that point.
Yeah, that
So
makes sense.
went back, reevaluated what was going on. Kind of looked at where everything's at. It's like okay, Abenai and Foes are like that relationship's pretty much ruined at that point. Not really going to happen. Bringing them back. So okay, let's start looking for other people. It's like that same season, Yeti like had to think like one of the best seasons of CL ever. Like we played against, he was on Disrupt at that time. So
Yeah.
like okay, like and then Grixer and Forrest and Yeti were like good friends already. Like they always played like ranked and shit. So like
Hmm.
we got him. I think he was the first one, and then after that, Execrate, like X was our coach at the time, Execration. He reached out to Alfama. He was watching stream and they say, like, let's just look at Alfama, right? Like just for the shit of it. And we talked to him, like that actually progressed into something more than we thought it would have been. I was just like, okay, we're just
Yeah.
gonna like give you a conversation. And
Right.
then
I remember hearing about that,
United's
and I was
like,
like, "Oh, what the
yeah.
hell?" Yeah.
And United's like, hey, like, you want a European player here? We'll take care of the visa and shit. So it's like, third, okay, we'll get the European dude. Alfama at that time, he was like on the stream and like they would just dominate you. They were like a top two team every
At
season
the
in
time,
EMEA.
they definitely were. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So okay, he can inject some good stuff into our team. And then what ended up happening is that his visa got delayed for quite a while because that was like during the it's like the very beginning of like all the COVID shit, basically. Like kind of they got elongated a bit. So we got Reed in the meantime to be a sub, and
Yeah,
then
I do remember that. That's when
yeah,
Reed
big
kind
Reed
of popped.
Evans.
Reed kind of popped off
Oh
right
man,
that then too.
we were that was like United when I was on the team at its best was with Reed 100%. I think we were in like fifth place or something like that. We got fifth place at first split. We were like
Yeah.
3 points out of like third. Like
I
we were
think
actually doing. We were
I think
competitive. We were
I think that was
competitive.
the best stage, and then everything. I
Yeah,
think every other stage after that, you guys
yeah. We just
depressed.
got shit on.
Yeah.
No, so like basically, with Reed, we realized okay, Reed's time's up now. Alfama got his visa. It's time to get Alfama. And it's like it wasn't anything like against Alfama. Just like I kind of knew it was like you know Reed was a really good player. He fit with the team really well. He really like he agreed with the philosophy of the team. There wasn't a really like tug of war going on. It's kind of like okay, like we had X, myself, and then as IGL coach, we're kind of like making everything happen. And that's like
Yeah.
Reed was like heard he really supported us really well. Reed would help make strats. He would help us do all that kind of stuff. Just overall, just he got it done. And then in the
Yeah.
serve, he also got it done. Like he just did a great job.
Yeah.
So I was kind of sad to lose him. And then we got Alfama, and then as soon as we got Alfama as well, about 2 weeks later, the org decided to drop Execration. So they didn't think that he was like coaching up to the standard they wanted. And in my opinion, I think that was not just I don't think it was picking up Alfama and losing Reed. I think it was losing X was one of the biggest things. Him and Bugs our analyst because he was kind of like even though he might not have like did a lot of the detail stuff, he would always make sure we're on the same page
Yeah.
about
Some
things.
people
Like because
some
we
people
we were
probably don't think
yeah
about that too. So
yeah. So we were like we're a bunch of hard headed kids at that time. So we just wanted like I want to do something. Forrest might want to do something. At the end of the day, X was like okay guys like here's what we're doing and like he would always make sure we're on the same page about everything. So like that really helped us as a team, right?
yeah,
And
for
then
sure.
we lost him. That's when the interview process started for other coaches and analysts. So the coach that we ended up, well, actually, I rephrase that. First, it was the coach, and the analyst was about a month after that.
Yeah.
So basically, that's where the whole coach process started. Um, it was Bagel, I think Gotcha, Cal, and a few others we were interested in. And then at the end of the day, the org decided to go with Bagel,
Yeah.
obviously.
That I don't even. That's a whole other story on its own part.
Yeah, I don't want to get too deep into that because I'm not just gonna like
Yeah. Yeah.
talk
Yeah.
bad
Yeah.
about the
Yeah. Yeah.
dude. Like I actually like him pretty decently as a person. He's not a bad guy at all.
Yeah.
You know, so we got him, and then after that, Bugs, our analyst, he got kicked as well. So then we got Meepy. Meepy was an absolute beast, by the way.
Yeah.
I
So
will
no.
say
So
that. Like
I worked with Meepy when
he is a stud.
he was trying out with Disrupt as the coach over there,
Oh yeah, I remember.
and,
I remember that.
he was working with we had a crazy coaching staff. We had Meepy Reaper as our coaching staff on
That'd
Disrupt.
have been
That
nice.
would have been
That'd have been nice.
crazy. We had Meepy as our analyst and Reaper as our coach, and we that was like it didn't end up working out because like just like different
Yeah.
things and it ended up working out. But yeah, Meepy and Reaper, they're both incredible, talented like
Yeah.
people. So I'm glad to see
Yeah.
Meepy actually because he obviously Rogue just won the major. So
Yeah. No, I
um,
guarantee that's a large part due to him as well because like he is a stud.
yeah, basically I wanted to kind of transition in the you're so obviously with everything that you're talking about, you've had a long like career. You've been playing for a long time, and obviously now you're a coach for Astralis. You know, after playing for so long and being in the scene for
Yeah.
so long and having all these experiences and stuff, what would you say are the highest moments of your career that you've had so far? And then what would you say are some of the lowest moments that you've had? And then thinking about these moments, how have they impacted your development as like a person or as a coach or as a player? And are there any of these things that kind of stand out to you or things that are at least notable?
I'd say like, I think like I've had obviously quite a few highs. I think winning relegation is probably like the best feeling I've had in Siege yet. Like like that was just insane. Like
Yeah.
at the time, it's like something like that. It's like you didn't have a job, and then all of a sudden you have a job, it's your dream job. It's like, okay, now you're a professional gamer, right? So like I
Right.
think that's at the top right now. Um, but in all reality, I think like, you know, what enabled me to become a decent coach is like the lows, honestly. Because like learning to deal with that, it kind of like makes you grow up fast, if that makes sense, right? It's like, you're just getting shit on all the time. It's like you learn how to deal with that a bit more, and then you can kind of teach other people how to deal with that as well. And
Hmm.
like not panic when things, I guess, go bad. Like right now, obviously, we didn't have a good start to the stage. I think that because we're not panicking as a team, I think we're in a good direction to actually, wheel it back around a bit. We kind of said now, like, okay, listen, we don't need to just throw everything out, right? It's like we're just gonna take it step by step, see what we did wrong, fix it as we go, and
Yeah.
then just move on from there. Like I think that's one of the biggest lessons I learned from like, losing. Because like before on other teams, especially when I was younger, it's like United's one of them. We would lose, and it's like, okay, we just got to change everything. And it's like because of that, it became like a constant tug of war. It's okay, what are we gonna change? We can change this. Yeah, I heard that. Okay, we're changing this now. It's like, watching that team, we never actually had like an identity. It was just a constant like fucking carousel of like, we're gonna change this, we're gonna change that, and it was just nonsense.
Yeah, I feel like, I have a lot of experience with that too, just being
Yeah,
on Mirage for a while, just because, sometimes some things just don't go your way, or sometimes you may think that you go into games with actually very good game plans
yeah,
and you end up losing the game, but it may not be sometimes it's not the game plan's
yeah,
fault. Sometimes there's just things that are out of your control. The dice don't fall
yeah,
your way. There's a lot of stuff, right? And I've just there's a lot of situations where people can overreact and end up creating a bigger problem out of
mm,
something that was already not a huge problem to begin with. You know what I mean?
yeah, yeah,
Uh,
100%.
that's one thing. So obviously, it's been talked about publicly a little bit, but I obviously this is one thing I wanted to definitely talk to you about more,
Mm,
and something that I kind of wanted to make this video about was to talk about how I think right now I'm more so leaning into transitioning into possibly,
yeah,
just more of the coaching side of Siege, or more of, being an analyst or assistant coach of Siege. Talking to you, when did you kind of realize that course of action of being transitioning into a coach or doing something on that side of the game may be the best course of action? Excuse me, the best course of action for you.
yeah. Um, so basically, after the whole United thing happened, I got dropped from that team.
Mm,
Uh, Mark Flood, cash flow, he basically reached out to me pretty much immediately. That's when you were still playing. Like he wanted me to come coach you guys at that time.
yeah, I do
And
remember that.
then so that's how that relationship basically started with me and him. And then I was like, no, I still have a passion to be a player. And like I just told him it's like I would love to do it, but I just still had that itch to play. And I didn't think I could fully like give it my all as a coach when I still wanted to play. That'd be unfair to the players that sit on that team, right? So
Right.
basically, just kept played that year of CL. Tried to run it back, fell short by a little bit at the end. And then during that time, I had a couple offers from some other teams to coach them. I don't know if it's obviously Disrupt was one, Beast goes with another. So like that was always there where it's like okay, like they kind of wanted me to go, and it's like I kept getting these offers, like kept just pushing it away. And then eventually what happened after we lost out at CL at the end is Cashflow came back to me and then asked me to come and trial. That's after I guess them and Easily split ways.
Yeah.
And, came back and did it, and then here we are now. So I think like to answer your question, I don't know if it was really so much as like kind of always knew I was going to be a coach one day. It just whenever I kind of didn't feel like I wanted to play anymore, or it's like okay, I'm okay with not playing at this point.
I feel
I
like
had to have
so.
like a good season of CL if that makes sense. I had to play well first
Right.
before I could do that.
I mean, that's kind of like a weird situation that I'm in right now, where I kind of wanted to hear it from your perspective. Like, was making that transition from player to coach, was it hard?
Mm.
Was it difficult in terms of, like, how did it how did it kind of like make you feel? Because for me personally, like
Mm,
right now, like I'm having a little bit of a hard time wanting to give up being a player for like the reasons you said,
yeah,
where it's like that's a question that I have written down later, but it's basically just like, I have a lot of faith in myself as a player, so how can I
yeah,
kind of give up on something that I still have faith in, And it's like if I close one
yeah,
door, like my playing doors, and open up like coaching doors, like am I gonna regret like possibly closing my playing doors, Like, and
yeah.
how did you kind of handle those feelings?
Um,
Or did you
like I
or did you
said,
even
it's
did you even have any of those feelings?
oh, I definitely did. Especially at the beginning. But it's like it's one of the things. Like my strengths always as a player was like my leadership. Anyways, I felt like that's the one thing I always brought to a team was like I was pretty okay at doing that.
Yeah.
So, I think that's kind of like same with you. Obviously, I think similar traits with that. So, it's honestly I don't know. Like that's kind of like something more individual. But like I said, like towards the end of that CL run, knowing that relegation was gone and there was no other chance I could qualify as a player, I didn't think if my last performance in Pro League, I would realistically get another shot at a Pro League team for a tryout.
Mhm.
So, at that point, it's like, okay, I want to get back to T1. I think I need a coach. And then that's where I kind of just like bit the bullet. Now actually doing it, I found quite a good amount of success doing it.
Right.
So, I think that it's paid off pretty well actually making that decision. It definitely wasn't like the easiest thing to do at first, especially leaving that team, like which is Ape at the time. Like, felt like shit doing that. 'Cause that's like a team that like I built. So it's like Ape was like a part of like my Uplay logo is still Ape. Like that's still like
Yeah.
a very special
Well,
team
I
to
mean,
me.
no, I
So it's like
remember like that was like
yeah,
it was a huge part. I understand what you're saying for sure.
yeah,
It's kind of how like
so,
DZ was for me. Like DZ was kind of like my first like home. Like that was just
yeah,
like the I don't know. It was just like my nothing will compare to it, I guess.
yeah. So like after like kind of getting over, I guess like leaving those guys and saying okay, they're in a pretty good spot now. I felt a little bit better about it. Then I kind of just didn't really look back at that point. Kind of just got after with Astralis.
Yeah, I mean, having an opportunity like Astralis at your front, to present itself to you, I think obviously that you can't be too upset about that opportunity. That's a great opportunity for
Yeah.
someone, for yourself. So I think that that's always awesome
Mhm.
to see. I was gonna say, so you're
Yeah.
like you're labeled as an extremely like hardworking coach, and like you said, I think personally, I don't know if you've been told this, but I personally think you're one of the best coaches in the region. Like super formidable coach. I look up to you a lot in that standard. Um, and for people that know me or have worked with me, they classify me as a pretty hardworking individual yourself. Um, Being a player, I teamed with Melted right now, or obviously
Mhm.
I'm coaching Melted now, but I did team with him back in stage two. He would always tell me, he's like, dude, when I teamed with Callout, when Callout was coaching, whatever, he's like, he was always like doing this, or you super hardworking, or looking at VODs, right? And that's one reason that I was always trying to like push myself to
Mhm.
be harder. Are those still things that transitioning into a coach, were those traits that were super helpful, like, or was it just like different? Because I feel like the things that you do as a player, that like the constant aim training, or the constant
Mhm.
sometimes you're looking at vods, like looking at a position to like get better at your spot, or like whatever you're doing, do all of
Yeah.
those things transition into what you're doing as a coach, or is it different? Are you looking at more stuff within your team, more like behavioral stuff? Like I know you guys are really big into like podcasts, like the what is it, the
Yeah. The Jocko
Joe,
Link.
the
Yeah. Jocko.
Jocko podcast
Yeah.
is, so is it, are you trying to style your coaching more around like mental stuff like that? What does that kind of look like in terms of your hard work, dedication between playing and coaching?
Um. I think it's especially thing like the VOD review as a player that I did. I think that like, and I'll say too, like a person I gave a lot of credit to is like the coaches I had before. Like Forceful taught me a lot. Execration taught me quite a bit. Like well, a lot of the tools I have now as a coach were taught to me by coaches I had before, right? And like I'm
Yeah,
glad Forceful finally got an opportunity on DZ because that guy, he deserves to be in T1. He's good at what he does. But anyways, in terms of like the VOD reviewing itself, I think that me playing for as long as I did, like in VOD reviewing, like it's like I was always pretty smart with like the way I played the game. It's just I don't always have the game to back it up. If that makes sense, right?
yeah,
So it's
I feel the same
being
way.
able to, yeah. So being able to do that, was you know, VOD review as a player, individual tendency, stuff like that. That allows me to kind of bring that to this team as well. So when I do like talk about stuff with these guys, or like watch some other stuff, I can like pretty much point out it's okay. This dude's gonna do this. Like, I'm not getting too into specifically how I do it, but it's like basically like, it applies. It applies quite a bit if it does, especially like doing IGL work and doing
For
coach
sure.
work. Because I still do, the brunt of like the strategy work and such. So it's pretty much all transfers over. I'd say the most applicable skill that I've learned from like playing to coaching is like helping people call like IGL and round. It's probably like
Yeah.
biggest transferable skill.
No, that is definitely. I mean, that's another thing that Rob talked about a lot is like how like good of an IGO you were, and I mean definitely that's one of the things I think is like I don't know if it's as important in the meta right now. I feel like right now the meta is kind of developed into a multi-shot calling system, and that was one of
Oh,
the
100%.
that was
Yeah,
like
100%.
that was like kind of the way that was like one of the problems I guess that Mirage kind of ran into is that like it just felt like
Mm.
I was kind of like the only one calling, and we didn't really
Yeah,
have like a ton of shot callers. So,
yeah.
um,
No, you're right about that. Like, I think that the game's developed, and I think that's one of like the biggest strengths that we have in this team. It's why it's allowed us like, for the most part, like stay ahead. Was like the fact that we have dudes like who can call pretty much any point in the round, like Shuttle, Forrest, and Dave. Like, and even Jack and DB, they do it sometimes, but like especially those three dudes, like they can call at any point in the round from wherever they're at, and it like really helps kind of progress the rounds and like actually keep things moving a lot of times, especially backside.
yeah.
Yeah,
I definitely agree. I kind of want to transition. So obviously, we're kind of talking about the game now, talking about more of the specifics, which is one thing I do want to get into. Talking about um,
yeah,
this was a little bit ago, but you guys obviously didn't have the most successful Berlin major run that you guys were hoping to have. I actually predicted you guys to make it out of the group with Elevate.
yeah,
And I knew that you guys were probably going to have a slow start, but I actually had you guys making it like a big comeback. From a
yeah.
coaching perspective, what were the challenges that you guys faced in Berlin, and do you guys think that what are some of the things that you've learned kind of coming into this stage now? I know that, you guys have already had a few games going into this stage, so maybe you've learned even more stuff, but, what are some things that you
Yeah.
definitely learned after Berlin?
Um, I think like the biggest thing about Berlin, I would say like one of the reasons why I think we started off a lot slower is because we didn't play against like the aggression of like a team like Furia or Elevate yet. Is you got to think like in Charlotte and NA, like we played against Wolves, BDS. Um, what's that APEC team's name? Fuck me, I don't know why I'm like
Uh, y-
forgetting this.
I mean, there's you talking about Elevator,
Some,
GG,
no,
or
no, no, no. The dudes we played against in our groups at Charlotte.
oh,
I'm not trying to be disrespectful right now. I actually just forgot. Like, to
no,
be
no,
honest with you,
I'm
but
trying
no.
to I'm trying to remember all the
But
APAC teams, but I can't remember.
but like pretty much the point of it is, they had bouncing balls in the team that do was crazy.
Oh,
But
you're talking
anyways,
about
like
Chiefs.
Chiefs, yeah, we played against Chiefs. So it was Chiefs, like I said, Wolves and BDS, and then we played against Oxygen and XZ, and then DZ. So it's quite literally like you look at those teams, like they're pretty slow paced teams compared to Fury and Elevate. So I
I mean,
think coming
some
in,
some can make the argument that like XZ's pretty aggressive, but yeah,
they are, but XZ's a lot more calculated, I think, than kind of Fury. Fury kind of just moves quite a bit, and then Elevate. Like I mean, those dudes like that Saber guy just fucking swings people with a pistol, like it's insane.
yeah,
But like, but anyways, I think that that's the biggest thing for us. We kind of got shocked by the aggression early on. We didn't really deal with it very well. And another thing that we kind of get like, kind of got exposed a little bit, I guess, was we would bully teams a lot of the times. When it came to like them kind of, trying to take gunfights and such. Like there wasn't really too many people that we played against before that would like actually like compete with it. If that makes sense.
yeah,
Like our speed and like kind of just the tenacity of it. We would just roll over teams a lot of times. And I think that Furia and Elevate did a really good job at playing against our aggressive style. They kind of shut it down, and in return, their aggression kind of just overwhelmed us a bit. So I think the biggest thing we came into this offseason we focused on was being able to be more aware of the gaps in our defense, especially like so we're not getting caught off guard as much as you get shot in the back. And then on the attack side, it's more so of focusing. Well, I'm not getting actually too much into this, but anyways, like we also fix stuff on the attack side. It's focusing on some minor details that kind of caught us off guard versus those guys.
yeah, for sure, for sure. I'm just saying from a viewing aspect, one thing I noticed about Astralis and one thing that I've always really enjoyed about your guys' team is just how much energy you guys play with and how much I don't know how much raw emotion, especially for just from
Yeah,
Dave, obviously, but honestly, it's something that I just felt from the entire team, and something that I feel like you bring on as a coach as well. But something I just noticed in Berlin, it just didn't feel like you and the
yeah,
guys just weren't really having as much fun as you guys were having in
yeah,
Charlotte, or maybe you guys as much fun as you guys were having at different events. I didn't know if that was hand in hand with the fact that you guys were losing, or I just didn't know if it was just the
yeah.
pressure getting to you guys, because obviously pressure is definitely a big thing going
Hmm.
into events like that. It's just coming off getting second place at Charlotte, also becoming you got that was after winning stage two, going back to back stage champion. So
Yeah.
there's a lot of pressure going into that event. Yeah.
Mhm. Um, like, this is the reason. This is not an excuse because it shouldn't have an effect on us. But like, I think one of the things that really wore us out there was like just the weather and like the lack of air conditioning. Like the guys were just like gassed because like
Yeah.
there was no AC there and it was humid and it was
I
like
did. I mean,
hot
I heard
and
that
like
from basically every
yeah.
player. So.
So like every time like in these rooms, and I really think that like had a big impact on us. And like there was obviously like leading up to that as well. Like we were supposed to go to the boot camp. The boot camp was a shit show. I had to practice like the first day there. It was like gonna be like a 2 day boot camp at Copenhagen, leading into Berlin, like in the Charles Nexus. So like Shuttle had some issues with like his passport, and he was stuck in Amsterdam for an extra day. So
Oh wow.
he was like, so I was like practicing with the guys for the first day. We played the next day with Shuttle. It is what it is. And then we went to Berlin. First day of Berlin, we couldn't even practice. And then so we only got 2 days of practice
Yeah, I
before the
heard that
before the
the
plane
like the
started.
PCs weren't
Yeah,
available until like
yeah.
Sunday or something. Like it was like you had
And,
to wait a while.
and I think that with like the added like kind of the weather issues and shit like that, I think that really kind of just killed our energy. We're talking about the energy. I think that the guys weren't having as much fun as we were at Charlotte because Charlotte was home, the U.S. On
That's
top
one.
of everything. Time zone wasn't really crazy,
Yeah, that's one
and
thing I
then
was definitely talking about with people is I kept saying, and people kept correcting me, is I kept saying I was like, dude, this is Astralis's first international event, and then people kept saying, well, what about Charlotte? What about Charlotte? What about Charlotte?
it was still at home.
Well, I'm like, guys, like Charlotte doesn't really count. Like they've really played against like a lot of North American teams. They're literally still at home. They haven't traveled internationally. Like I feel like going to Berlin and being completely out of the
Yeah,
environment in a completely different system is a whole different ball game.
yeah. I mean,
And
it's a brand, it's a new team experience, right? So it's like something that we've never experienced before. We experience it now. Now I just gotta hope we can. We just gotta turn around this stage and hopefully go to the next wherever it's at.
yeah, for sure, for sure. I'm kind of bouncing back between different ideas here, kind of talking about different
So that's fine, man.
different um what's the word I'm looking for? Just different. We have a lot of similarities in our lives in
Yeah.
terms of how we grew up. Like for example, you played a lot
Mm.
of sports and I played a lot of sports. I played basketball and I know that you played a lot of football growing up and stuff like
Yeah.
that. I was just curious because growing up, I played for so many different coaches, and the
Yeah.
biggest thing I remember is just like how direct coaches could be with me, and how I remember I would always just be getting screamed at for whether it be me making a bad play or me being out of
Yeah.
rotation, or whether it just be my coaches tell me, hey, you got to focus up, and but
Yeah.
it was always them screaming and yelling, but never in a disrespectful way, always just them telling me to be better, right?
Yeah.
um in football, obviously, I guess the first question is, do you have similar experiences like that?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
No,
definitely.
man. We would win a game and like still like we'd go to so, like we played our games on Fridays. We'd
Hmm.
always have Saturday off, and then Sunday they'd have film day. Film day was optional now, right? But like if they expect you to be there. They said it was optional, but like you're at film. Like that's just how it is. And Sunday mornings, man, like oh my god, you go to church, you go to film, and then like you would just get ripped. Like I'm talking like
Yeah,
I've never been ripped up like that
yeah,
in any other like way in my life. I'll just get you just get fucking screamed at
right.
for like two and a
So,
half hours. It's like
right,
they would just rewind the film. Like if you had missed a block, because I played offensive line, I played defensive line. If I missed a block, you'd be there in front of the whole team. They would just rewind it. They would play it. They would rewind it. They would play it.
yeah,
They rewind it. And be like, what are you doing right here? It looks like a piss comes down your leg and this guy's around the corner. It's like,
yeah.
third. You
So,
just gotta get used to it after a while.
yeah, so I guess the question is transitioning is like, do you think that that mean or quote unquote like assertive style of coaching is the correct style coaching for Siege? Because I feel like the consensus, or like just like
Mm.
the atmosphere, or just I don't know how the ecosystem is most coaches are I wouldn't say, I don't know what the right word is to use. I wouldn't say timid. I wouldn't say that they're not assertive in certain aspects, but I just don't think it's like that. I feel like, what do you in your eyes, what's the ideal coaching system structure look like for a team to be successful?
Um, I think it's a case by case basis, right? So I think that the assertive approach, traditional sport approach does work for some people. It's like leadership in general, I think, is like a very like fickle thing. So, what works for one person may not work for another. Like, one player on my team, like I'm not gonna name anybody's names, but like there's a dude on my team right now, I can literally just like I can just tell him, I can just be like, hey man, like you're fucking this up, like here's what we gotta do, and he'll just be like, okay, heard, and do it. Some
Hmm.
other guys I gotta be like, okay, like, you know, you gotta kinda like flank the ego, you gotta get around a bit, right? So it's like really just depends on the person, the player, and the team. I don't think that any one right approach is the correct approach. I think it kind of just matters, what kind of people you have on your team more so than, what the system should be.
It's just
And then,
interesting. It's just
yeah,
interesting how it's like, I just remember like, because it's like in basketball, or like in any sport in that matter, it's like I feel like maybe it wasn't the right way, but like coaches didn't really change their coaching approach to
Yeah,
meet standards of other players. They would say, "Hey, do it this way," or you're not making the team, or get the hell out, or whatever they would
yeah,
say. And it's like, I guess here, I guess in Siege, it's a lot different. It's a lot more personal because you're living with these players, and
yeah,
it's a lot more, it's a lot smaller team. You're only with six
yeah,
players, and including the coach and stuff like that. So definitely different situations, but it's just interesting to think about how all these coaching all these coaching experiences that we have in all these different situations, and just thinking about what's the perfect way to coach, what's the right system look like, and I
yeah,
feel it's, I don't know, that's something that scares me as a coach. It's like, if I do
yeah,
end up becoming a main coach of a team, am I going to be like too assertive? Are people not going to like me for that? Or am I not going to be assertive enough, and people are going to be kind of not respecting me and stepping on my
yeah,
shoes, or stepping in, not, I just feel like there has to be a right boundary, or
yeah.
a right system, I guess.
Well, I'd say like, anytime you're in a leadership position, the first thing is like, and obviously I'm not, I'm 20 years old, so I don't know jack shit, but I only know what I know, right? And what's worked for me so far. But anyways, it's like I think that one of the biggest things is, like you said, I don't think you cannot be afraid of not being liked. Like you have to be respected, but and you have to be respectful, but you're not gonna be your every player's friend. Like that's something that I just accepted as being a coach. You have to accept as being a coach. Like you're there to coach those guys and make them better, and you're there to win games at the end of the day. Like that's your goal. And doing that is not always going to kindle friendships. Sometimes it's going to, cause maybe a little bit of resentment at the beginning. At the end of the day, if you're making those guys better players and you're winning games, then you know they're going to respect you for it. And they're going to listen to what you say.
Yeah, and
I
that's
think that's yeah.
I didn't know I cut you off, and you have something to say.
Oh no, you're good. You're good.
I was
That was pretty much it.
I was basically saying, like, because that's actually just a great transition, because I wanted to transition the conversation into, like, do you think do you think coaches, I guess, in esports in general, or I guess just in Siege, do you think that they should be good friends with their teammates?
No, I don't think so. So like, I think that it's okay to have a good relationship with those people outside of the game. But I think if you're too close, I guess, to a certain player, I mean, if you're too close to a friendship, there has to be some sort of separation because like especially if that player's really screwing up, at the end of the day, it's usually the coach who like makes a decision who the players are, who's on the team, who's getting cut, who's staying, whatever that is, right? So it's like if you allow your emotions to cloud your judgment with that, I think that becomes an issue. Now, I still hang out with the guys, like we go and we lift weights together, like we go out to dinner and stuff like that. And, I like we get along with each other very well, but at the end of the day, like there has to be some sort of little bit of separation between the coach and the players, if that
I
makes sense. I think that for the coach to remain objective.
I agree. I think one problem that I've always had on a lot of teams that I've been on, not just Mirage, but just on any team that I've been on, is that um, maybe I just feel like certain responsibilities aren't being picked up, or
Mm.
certain things, or maybe like I'm a very high competitive guy, right? I
Yeah,
whenever I see mistakes, or whenever something's going wrong, or I just notice something, I want to fix it, right? So I'm gonna point
yeah,
it out. And whenever people, I've noticed people don't like being called out when they're wrong, or
yeah,
for a mistake, or
mm,
just any, or being put on the spot like that. And in my opinion, I think it is one of the biggest responsibilities of the coach to make sure that like
yeah,
those standards are being upheld. That, like, if
100%.
or like if players are calling stuff out, or if, for that matter, the coach themselves should be the person calling stuff out, saying, hey, this isn't okay. Like, we need to be making sure that we're doing this, or whatever the situation may be. I've always felt that sometimes that isn't the case, and that I have to step up as like the IGO, like in terms of
Yeah,
like a player position, and quote unquote be this like bad guy. And that's
yeah.
always been a big question, is like, does there have to be a quote unquote like bad guy on the team, or couldn't there be a system where there's no bad guy? In my opinion, there has to be someone that's like the bad person.
I don't know if it's so like I'm gonna backtrack just slightly to what you're saying about the beginning about the standards. But like to talk about that, I think like you're talking about, the bad guy, things like that. I think the number one most important thing to any team, regardless of sport or regardless of what you're doing, if it's video games, Rainbow Six, whatever it is like creating a culture where you make the standards of your team outlined and clear constantly. So like whatever your standards are for a team, everyone on the team knows that's what the standards are and that's what they get themselves into. So that way, when you're getting held accountable, it's not just okay, I think you should be doing this. It's like, okay, this is the standard, this is the culture that we have with
And
this
every
team.
single person
This is
is
what you're
being
doing.
held to the same standards.
Yeah, exactly. That's like, extremely high standards and no expectations. That's like kind of like the thing that I go by, if that makes
And
sense.
you
Like,
agree that
we have,
you think that the coach should be the person that's like setting the system, that's like setting those standards.
yeah, I mean, it can also, with a small team like Rainbow Six as well, like, obviously the coach has to be like the person who's the example of those standards. Like, as a coach, I don't think you should ever be setting standards and not upholding them yourself. So,
Definitely
like,
agreed. Yeah.
yeah, so I think that it can also like kind of like develop organically, I should say. There's stuff that we have that every player on this team has contributed to. Like we all talk about it, right? It's like we have a whiteboard over there. And we have like these hashtags where it's like hashtag like be for real, which is like that's one of the main things we talk about. It's like, okay, like you have an issue with somebody, you address it with them. You don't do it behind their back. Like that's a big thing that we talk about, right? Like another one is like LYNH, which is that's like let your nuts hang. That's like a big one for us. Like there's little things like that. And we have like 15 of them on the board. It's like those kind of are the backbone of what we want to be as a team. Like as those are our standards, those are our core tenets. We call them. That's kind of what we live
No,
by
I
as a
like
team.
that. I like that. I haven't really heard another team like have stuff like that. Well, I mean, like
Yeah.
I've heard teams try to attempt stuff like that, but I haven't really heard teams upholding the standards to a level of that like that high, I guess.
I mean, we struggle with it every day. Upholding it. That's why they're there. But you are. It's if we get uphold it constantly. That's kind of thing. It's like we realize like we do all these things and we win games. It's like we fail to uphold some, which we've done a little bit of that. As a whole, we've kind of slacked on some things and when we've been losing games, right? So it's like kind of going back to those standards, seeing what we set, doubling down on them, getting it done. That's what we had to do in Sage too. Like kind of a slow start. I think we had a total of like what was it, 4 points in like the first 2 weeks of Stage 2, or 6 points the first. Like it was bad. It was a terrible start. That's the point. So it's like came back, reevaluated our standards, looked at them,
That stage was
got
crazy.
after
That
them.
stage was actually
Yeah,
crazy, bro.
yeah, and then we just fucking got it done. So
I remember,
that's like
I remember
what we're
like
gonna do in
looking at
Rainbow.
that stage or watching it, and I was like, oh, like dude, everyone's like really close. Like OXG is like almost in first. I guess is good. And then like the last day happened, it's like boom, Astralis in first. I was like, what the? I was like, what just happened, bro? Then you guys
No
went from
man,
like
that was insane.
you went from like seventh to first, or like like fourth to
Yeah,
first, or like it was like ridiculous, bro. Like, oh
it
yeah.
was crazy.
Yeah, I was like, wait, I didn't even think Astralis was like in contention for first. They went crazy, bro. Like, you
Yeah.
guys had a crazy comeback. So I was like the comeback, like the stage one comeback, bro. When hot and cold was on our team, that
Oh,
was
that
only
was. I remember you guys got third that stage.
that
That
was the
was you
only
guys.
stage that we were good. I guess that was unfortunate, bro. Yeah,
No,
that stage was
no, that
nasty
was
though.
that was no that sucked too. That was the one stage that they canceled the major. I
No,
remember
no,
that
they
because you guys
canceled
supposed
the
to go to Mexico,
major,
weren't you?
and then we were so yeah, we were gonna yep, and then stage two. Oh
That
my God,
sucks.
stage two we choked, bro, because I dropped the hatch. I dropped the hatch against Grixer on club. He was
Ah,
defusing, and
oh, I remember that.
I thought I killed him. So I got up to fist bump because I thought I won the round, and I didn't kill him. And then he got off the bomb and killed me. And
Christ, I had no clue that's what happened, man. That's insane, though. I actually feel bad
yeah,
about that.
no, it was 100% my fault. Like it was I trolled the round, and my teammates trying to make me feel better. They're like, listen, there was other rounds that we trolled, and we trolled a lot of rounds that game, but you think about that, like that's one of the moments of the play. I'm like, dude, if I just killed that guy, we would have went to Sweden probably, and
Yeah,
that that was unfortunate,
it
bro.
is what it is.
That was
It is
unfortunate.
what it is.
Yeah, but so kind of transition. I want to talk about. I was planning on doing this interview before Stage 3 started, but obviously now we're kind of in the middle of Stage
Yeah,
3 now. Or not in the middle. I guess it just started. So, you guys, as I said previously, you guys just won back-to-back stages, which was like super, super, super impressive. Also, just kind of talking with that specifically, how did that kind of make you guys feel? You guys just picked up Forest,
mm.
and going into the stage, I think a lot of people were kind of saying, obviously. So I don't know if people know about this publicly, and I don't care if you do. Do you care if I talk about it publicly about me being the
Oh
the
no, no, that's fine. Yeah,
okay, yeah. So basically, and I have no beef with it. I love Forrest and I love all you guys. Like you
yeah,
guys are like I honestly really cool people. But I was in contention to be one of the people to go to Astralis during that
yeah,
time. And then it came down to me and Forrest, and you guys ended up going with Forrest, which ended up being, a really good option for you guys. You guys ended
mm.
up going uh, and winning back-to-back stages. But I was saying, I think going into those stages, I think people were kind of having their doubts about it. Will this roster work? Yada yada.
Yeah.
How did that kind of feel? What were the vibes? And what were the what was it like going through that? Was it like the challenges that you had to make to accomplish such something like that to go back to back?
Yeah. I think the first thing is like, after that whole like United fiasco happened, and like me and Forrest got dropped, like we quite literally didn't say a single thing to defend ourselves, like at all on Twitter or like Twitch or anything like that.
Hmm.
I think this like quite literally, it's kind of strange the time, but it's like first time we actually ever talked about this like publicly was like this and like what Forrest did yesterday, right? So it's like no one knew anything, so they just thought me and Forrest were a couple of dunces. Like they thought like we had no clue what the heck we were doing, right?
Right,
So
right, right.
you know, I think that was a big misconception. I mean, I think like obviously I knew what I was doing. I knew that Forrest was an excellent player. He knew what he was doing, right? It's
Yep.
like he also brings like great energy to the teams. So like when it came between you and Forrest, like I told you, like a lot of it was the specific of it was like the defensive calling because like I was very objective in that. Like I let like we had like this whole like metric system and shit. Like the players like voted on stuff, and it was like the one thing that like he got over that was like he was really good at like calling defensive adaptations, especially in the round.
Right.
And like, cause you were just as good at calling attacks as him, for keeping it frank. Like you went actually nuts in that tryout. I remember that.
Yeah, no,
You were
no,
going crazy.
dude. People, it was so funny because I was like, I went nuts in the tryout, and then after I was like, I went kind of nuts in that tryout, and then I was playing ranked with Shuttle one night, and I remember I got like a bunch of DMs. And people were saying that like they were like, oh, congrats on like the Astralis spot and stuff, because like Shuttle never plays ranked, and he was playing ranked with me. and I,
Yeah, that's yeah.
and I was
No,
like,
but it was
it was funny.
it,
Like I said, bro, it was. I don't care, bro. I'm good, and that was a funny
yeah.
situation, bro. That was a funny situation.
But to kind of go back to your question about how I felt like
Yeah,
I'm not a big social media guy myself. I'm keeping it frank. Like I really don't like
right,
honestly don't really give a fuck about what goes on there. I kind of just
right.
get after it. Like I get on there to DM people and look for scrims pretty much, or I just like post something absurd like a Jocko gift, like a Sam I did get some shit or something. You know what I'm saying?
Good.
Just something to stir people up, and then like I just get off and that's it.
Yeah.
And then so I didn't really get too caught up in like the hype. I guess it's like oh like a Charles doing this and doing that, right? It's like we can lose just as easy, we can win. That's kind of like the mentality I kept. And like right now, I mean, we've lost 2 games in a row, like it happens, right?
Oh yeah,
So
definitely
it's
happens. But this is kind of like you said. This is a situation that you guys are used to. You guys happen to the same
yeah,
thing as stage two. You guys went down, right? You guys were only stage had
yeah,
like 4 points or something like that after the first 2 weeks.
yeah.
So
So it's like it happens. I don't think that winning or losing too much really affects my mental. If that makes sense. I try to like look at everything like as objective as I can. Like even when we were winning, there were still weaknesses in our gameplay that I think people are now. I think with like the more firepower that's coming in the league, especially like stage one and stage two, there was always like one or two people on pretty much every team we played that really couldn't like fire back, and
I mean,
now like
every team in the
every
NAL
team
is
every team can shoot back right now. So
is
it's
good.
like it's like every team is really good. I don't think we've gotten necessarily worse. I think the other teams have just gotten a lot better. Over the stages, especially you guys. I mean, you guys are actually playing some pretty decent siege right now. I think Mahesi's I love Mahesi by the way. He gets it done. But you guys are doing playing some good siege. I think everybody's playing some pretty decent siege. I wouldn't be surprised to see any team in the top four like at the end of this stage. So I think that's one of the biggest things that we're trying to get over now is like for us to get better. So like now us playing like Astralis played in stage one and stage two is not going to be good enough. Now we got to get better than we were, and that's like kind
Building
of what
on
we're
what
looking
you
to do
guys
right now.
already have.
Exactly. Not losing anything and gaining. That's kind
Yeah,
of what we're doing.
that's one thing I've heard like a lot of like people like Pangu talk about a lot, where he's like, it's really hard to maintain. People talk about like dynasties or like becoming a
Yeah,
dynasty in this game, and G2 arguably is the only team to
they
really
really are. Yeah.
are do it. Like they had like a G2 Penta, that dynasty, and then it eventually it crashed, it fell, and um the biggest thing is that, sorry, where was I going with this statement? Um, G2 Pengu talks a lot about how it's really hard to be consistent because um of just how different like the game. You're traveling to Berlin, right? And then after you're traveling to Berlin, you have to come back, and then the meta is changing in between you coming back to the game because you were practicing a different game because you can't play the TTS because you guys are playing at Berlin, right? And there's changes in the
Yeah.
TTS, so you guys have to and then
Yeah.
all the new teams for like the NAL are scrimming on the TTS while you guys are having to scrim old patch and go to Berlin and play there.
Yeah.
And then you guys come back and you guys only have like 3 weeks into the stage to prepare. Like all of that. That's why, and I guess that's that's one thing that I haven't had to deal with for a while because like you don't travel to tournaments if you don't go top
Yeah.
four, and I don't know. It's just something to think about that you travel to go to Berlin, you come back, and you only have 3 weeks to prep. The game
Yeah.
changes so much, and then every single other team is already is catching back up. It's pretty. NAL is
Yeah.
the most competitive region, and well actually EU just won, bro. So I don't know.
Yeah. And kind of go back with that, like you're saying, traveling to a tournament, coming straight back, running for an L. I think that like something that a lot of people don't see that also plays a factor in that is also burnout. We don't really get like proper breaks. It's like
Yep.
you're kind of just in it constantly, especially if you're going to like these tournaments. Like
Yeah.
you win, you prepare for the tournament, you go to the tournament, you come back, you take a short break, you're
Right.
preparing for stage three with
When
brand
are
new
you when are
shit,
you
and it's
supposed
like,
to when are you supposed to take a
yeah,
break and then also scrim the new stuff and then all
yeah,
there's just a lot of stuff that you have to get ready for.
yeah, and like I think that burnout and burnout management are the most important things that players and coaches need to do, and like I think that's honestly one thing that I think we lacked on a bit was I don't think we did a great job of managing our burnout. So I think that that kind of accounts for our slower start this stage, especially. We came back, we never really had like that crazy spark that we really had always had. It's like the energy wasn't just like nuts like it usually is, and it's getting there right now, especially after losing. Like I kind of reignited it, but it really
After
wasn't there to
yeah.
start back.
After losing, I think everyone kind of wakes up a little bit. You get a
Yeah,
fire kicked under you. That's one thing. I mean, burnout is definitely a real thing, man. That's just kind of a
yeah,
that's the biggest thing that kind of did it for me is that I don't really want to go into like the Mirage situation. I kind of tweeted my piece about that, but after playing professional Siege, because I started playing back in 2018, right when I turned 18. Um, so I've been playing for 5 years, and every single day, like waking up, like basically on your mind, like you just wake up and you think about Siege, or you think about like like playing Siege. I feel like
yeah,
I'm still I guess waking up thinking about Siege from a coaching aspect, but there's just different pressures. Also right now I'm an assistant coach, so it's not the full pressures of being a main coach, but
yeah,
that's besides the point. Basically my point is that like when you're waking up and you're doing the same thing every single day for a 5 year period and you're not thinking about anything else, like I didn't realize like how much of like a mental strain like it
yeah,
truly was like I came back home and like it just like totally like hit me like I was like dude like I need to like just kind of like reset and like just fully think about something else for a little bit or like just give myself a different perspective, and that's kind of like why I
mhm,
ended up stepping away for stage 3 for mental health reasons and just different shit. But um definitely just a crazy thing to think about, something that for any player watching it, for anyone that is in any aspect, like mental health is such an important aspect for when it comes to Siege. I honestly think Siege is in terms of like the pros, it's basically mental, bro. Like in terms of the mechanical skill, everyone's right there. Like there's no one like there are better mechanical players than some, but I feel like the game comes down to being like really 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 mental. So like that's like the
yeah.
biggest thing for me.
No, 100%. You gotta kind of like uh forceful. He would always bring something that's called like a stress cycle. So essentially, to complete a stress cycle, like that's kind of how you manage your burnout. Like he'd always say, it's you gotta like complete your stress cycle. It's like I think learning how to do that as an individual, especially as like a competitor, is extremely important to be able to do. Finding out what works for you and completing that stress cycle, and kind of like just getting it out, and then you know
Yeah,
moving on.
some people like for example myself, like I never really found, or I was never really taught like the exact ways to like alleviate stress, or like the exact ways like how to
Mhm.
like manage your stress. Like those are just like things that you know other than like your parents and stuff, and they try to teach you and stuff, but like
Yeah,
no one's really like trying to hold your hand like through these things. They're just I think that's just things that you learn through life and like things that you learn through
yeah,
your experiences and stuff like that. So it was definitely interesting to for me to go through those experiences. That's just something that I'm 22 now, still really young, and that's one thing. It's like hit me. I'm like I'm really young in esports. I think still like
yeah.
I don't think 22 is like a really like crazy like old age. Like like
Oh no.
you look at like some players that have been doing this for way longer than me, and they're still doing it. So it was just a very interesting experience to have at such a young age. I think for me.
Hmm.
And that's why I think it was just really really changing. That's why I think I going into it and making this transition into coaching from being a player, I think having those experiences and just you know, going through everything that I have gone through and going all the things that you've gone through. I think that's just something that really would help shape just, you know, my coaching perspective, my coaching style, and just like be really helpful. I
Mm.
think. I don't know.
Yeah,
Something I haven't thought about a lot.
yeah, 100%. Kind of going back through that, that's like I think one of my biggest challenges as a coach is like, helping the guys outside of like the game with like their personal stuff. It's like a very like fine line that you have because it's like at the end of the day, your job as a coach is to kind of ensure like the strategy's there, the culture of the team, like you're going to decide what's going on, all that stuff. But at the also like a very big part of being a competitor is like being a healthy functioning individual. And like as a coach, it's kind of like your job to help with that. But it's not really something you can dictate because at the end of the day, these dudes have their personal life. They do what they want to do. Like you can only really make suggestions.
Right.
So I think that's like a very hard thing to do is kind of figure out a way to like give your knowledge to like the players and then in a way that they'll accept it and actually do it. Because a lot of stuff you're telling them to do is like stuff that's not like the easy thing to do, right? It's like you tell dudes, okay, you need to be exercising, you need to be waking up at a consistent time. It's like you tell them this stuff. It's like at the end of the day, it's like it's that dude's life. You can't really dictate what he does when he's outside of practice time, right?
Do
So
you think
it's
do you think that those things directly contribute to better results, like being on a better
100%.
sleep schedule, being more
Yeah.
active? Do you think all of those
Yes.
things with for example, so like, you know, I'm trying to name players off the top of my head, but like I've heard I don't actually know my true belief on it because I was working out a lot with on for example when I was on Dark Zero, and that was like the philosophy on DZ that Zach really instilled back then was like,
Mm,
you know, just we had a personal trainer. We were very fit. We were running to the point we were going out and like running like 4 miles like in the morning and stuff like that. It was pretty insane. And I've gone to like that spectrum of that fitness, but I don't, and I guess you could say that probably was the highlight of my career so far as in terms of a player. So maybe that does directly correlate to results. I'm not exactly sure, but um, I remember this isn't my belief, but I hear a lot of people talking about how in gaming, you know, you don't necessarily need to be the most fit to be the best player. Like you could be people you could be spending the time that you go to the gym to be training your aim or watching VODs or doing something to be training your in-game knowledge or your in-game mechanics rather than bettering your life outside of the game. I personally believe now after going through the things that I've gone through with my mental health and everything like that, that being on a different to being on a good system or a good cycle, being outside, getting away from the game, being healthy, all of those things are attributed to better mental health, and better mental health attributes to better gameplay. So I do agree with you, but I was just curious on your full
mm.
perspective on it, I guess.
So yeah, and you're talking about age. I think that's a very interesting thing you talked about, like the age in esports, like being older and such. When you look at the players who have been in esports as long as they've been in, most of them are fairly healthy individuals. Like I will say, like most of the dudes you can find who can just grind the game 16 hours a day and get after it, they're like 18, 19-year-olds.
Yep.
It's like
Yep.
I think it's one also the biggest things. I don't think that's a sustainable lifestyle. I don't think you can come in and just play the game 16 hours a day and do nothing else but play the game, eat fast food, and go to sleep at night. Like I don't think obviously when you're younger, you're more durable. You just have more energy in general. Like your testosterone's flying. Like you're just getting after it when you're younger, right? It's like, and I think as you get older, and I think those bad habits start to catch up to you a little bit faster. And I think that's why you see such a short lifespan in esports. Honestly, I think that's one of the biggest things.
I,
'Cause I
I
don't think people take care of themselves when they're younger, and I think as it goes on, they kind of just.
I do agree with that. I look at a lot at like League of Legends. I'm not sure if you're familiar
Mm.
with the League of Legends esports system at all or not, but
I
for
watched it a little bit. Yeah.
for example, like Korean teams are just like teams you know, just from any Asian region. They I've watched they make a lot of videos talking about just like like their training regiments and the thing that they go through. There's literally like schools in Japan now or schools in you know anywhere in Asia or anywhere on that side of the country where basically they literally go and they're training video games like 16 hours a day. They're doing the things that you're saying where you know they're not sure if those things are sustainable or if it's developing good habits. But then they produce the best teams like League of Legends,
Mm.
like SKT or like you know, and you look at any of these teams like they've come out of like those regions, and I
Mm.
was just curious to see like I look at that and I'm like wow, like they spend their system is like like you gotta grind, you gotta put in so much time, you just gotta like go, go, go. And I feel like that's how they you know that's how they said that they are like for the schooling system too. Like that's how they train or that's how they study for exams and stuff like that. And I guess that's how I've always been. That's kind of like the mindset that I've instilled in myself as a player. It's like, oh, I gotta push myself, I gotta grind myself, I gotta be the hardest working player and push my and like I don't know, man. I just eventually like you get to a point where it's like the results just weren't there. Like I didn't like I
Yeah,
pushed myself so far and I was working so hard, but like the results didn't come up. So I don't know. It's just interesting looking at like those perspectives
yeah,
and how maybe I should have slowed down and like looked at like different perspectives instead of like okay, I'm really working my ass off here, but like could I be working smarter maybe or could I be just doing things differently?
yeah. I think that, like, you know, I don't I have no honestly can't like comment, on like the what they do on like the Korean teams for League of Legends stuff. I honestly haven't seen any of that, so I couldn't really,
Yeah,
kind of get into that. I just know in my personal experience, myself at least, like I think that like like right now I'm probably the healthiest I've been since I've been in esports, like as a coach, and it's like I can go like just my energy levels in general, like because I work out every morning, I eat a pretty decent healthy diet. Like I'll still eat out, but it's not like
yeah. But
base
you're
thing,
you're making healthy choices.
Yeah, and like I just have so much more energy throughout the day. Like I can just go.
Yeah,
Like right now I've been awake since like 7:30. So I've been awake for a while and like I'm
and
still
you've been grinding, and I
still just
appreciate
going.
that.
We're still just going. So it's like and before like I could maybe go 12 hours a day and I'll just feel like sluggish. Like I'd feel like shit afterwards. I kind of just want to go to bed. So
Yeah,
I was.
yeah. No, I feel that. Feel that. Yeah. It's just crazy to think about just the different styles. I'm thinking about how I could be doing how I could have done stuff differently and shit like that.
Yeah.
I kind of don't want to take up any more of your time. Obviously,
Oh.
that's crazy. It's 7:30. You guys you've been up for excuse
Oh
me
no, I'm good. I'm good.
for a long time.
I'm so good. So if you got any more questions,
Yeah,
I mean
no, no, no. It's
we can hammer away.
I actually don't have any more questions. I was kind of wrapping it up. So I was
Sure.
basically just saying like I really do appreciate that. You just kind of take your time and to sit down and give your perspectives on stuff like this. I really do appreciate it. Like I said, for me personally, like you're someone in my career that, especially from a coaching aspect, as I kind of transition into a coaching role, someone that I've looked up to. So appreciate your time. And
Yeah.
if you have any other final thoughts or shout outs or anything that you want to say to the people that are going to be watching, feel free to, the floor is yours to anything that you want to say, or if you don't have anything.
No, I mean, appreciate you, bringing me on here. This is all you. I'm
Yeah,
just here, you know, help, doing whatever, I enjoyed it. It was nice, good conversation. I really got nothing to say, I guess people watching, hope we can, as a team of Astralis, we can do a bit better than we've been doing for you, especially our fans. We've got to let you guys down. So we will work our ass off to do better.
for sure, for sure. I have no doubt that you guys are probably going to turn the season around, man. You guys did it in stage two, and you guys are going to do it around again this stage. So you guys are a really good team. You guys are going to turn it around for sure.
Appreciate
Who do you guys play next?
it.